And here we kick off with an explanation of enabling. Here we have enabling refers to an act of helping someone in such a way that rather than solving a problem, it perpetuates the problem. When it comes to enabling, we also need to understand sympathy, empathy, and apathy, which we will double back to a little bit later. In addiction, it's not uncommon for loved ones to play on heartstrings in order to get what they want or the desired reaction to get their way. In this case, when we refer back to the slide, of it creating an atmosphere in which the addict can comfortably continue in their unacceptable behavior, or even going back to the addict, who is the loved one in this case, that they could and should be doing what they should be doing for themselves. That role will be carried on by the enabler. Now, if we look at what those 2 points that I've just read out say, it basically gives the enabled, permission to continue with the undesirable behaviors and continue with the addiction and everything that comes along with it, which then resolves them of responsibility and opening the door for blame. Because if they are not at fault for anything, then they can blame others around them, whether it's you as the family member who's trying to help them, or anyone on the street, or the girlfriend, boyfriend, anyone really. If we look at points 5, 6, and 7, altogether, those work off of each other, where the loved one, being yourself, the enabled in this case, lives in blissful existence, and they get what they want, whilst the enabler, you family members or loved ones in this case, they live a life of stress and anxiety and continuing in this bubble of irritation, to your own detriment. And that then goes back to the enabler consistently compromising themselves and their sanity in order to save the addicted loved one. And consequently, the enabler and the enabled individuals both suffer. Nobody wins in that scenario. If we move on to the next slide there, Cheryl. Thank you. Starting at the top there, enabling therefore means that someone, a family member of an addicted loved one, will always fix, solve, or make the consequence go away. In addition, the addicted loved one begins to rely on these resources, thereby coming to expect that their destructive and dysfunctional behaviors are disconnected from the consequence or negative outcome. This in turn perpetuates the behavior, and the addicted loved one begins to hold the enabling family member or friends hostage in order to keep their pattern and addictive ways. At this point, I'd like to double back to what I had mentioned: empathy, apathy, and sympathy. Now, if we look at the textbook definition of what these terms mean, empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another, acknowledging one another's joy or sadness and allowing them that space and the support in that sense. Then we have apathy, which is a lack of interest and concern, become disinterested, disconnected, and disengaged. Then lastly, we have sympathy, feelings of pity or sorry for another. And here I just want to refer back to something that I'd learned during varsity, where our lecturer, I'm not sure others may have heard this as well, but my lecturer described sympathy, empathy, and apathy in this way: is the enabled, in this case, is in a hole. a deep, deep hole. The sympathetic person would be inside the hole with them. The empathetic person would be at the top looking into the hole with a rope. And the apathetic person would be walking away, ignoring what's happening around them. And that's how I view, specifically sympathy and empathy when it comes to enabling behavior and addiction. If we look at the points of manipulation that begins or continues in order to ensure that the addiction is supported, and the lose-lose situation, as well as the addicted loved one being in control, or thinking that they're in control because they're getting what they want at the end of the day. All of these reflect specifically to the differences between empathy and apathy. Now, when we're enabling, I see that as an example of sympathy. In essence, us as loved ones want to help. We want to get our addicted loved ones out of this hole that they're in, but we end up falling into that hole because we're manipulated to do what this person would like us to do. We adhere to their needs. We adhere to their behaviors. And it becomes an ongoing cycle where you're like, okay, let me just help you. But we can't help each other if we're both inside the hole. And that is essentially what enabling is getting into the hole with your loved one. You think you're helping, but now you're just both stuck in the exact same place. Here, nobody wins, nobody grows, nobody learns, nobody is supported, and no one is protected. The enabled addicted loved one misses out on the benefits of true self-reflection and self-evaluation of their behaviors, and therefore becomes stuck in a role where he or she feels incompetent, incapable, disempowered, dependent, and ineffectual. And that is something that is easy to slip into doing because in essence, you don't know what to do. You want to help your loved one, but you don't know how to help them. Now, if we go on to the next slide. Okay. Oh, sorry, one before that. Thank you, Cheryl. Okay. The enabled or addicted loved one then gradually accepts a self-concept that includes negative traits, where their self-esteem is destroyed and a struggle to become responsible and self-sufficient in the future. In enabling, there becomes a true sense of loss of self. And it's not just the enabled, but it's the enabler. If you think of how many times you've lost yourselves in just trying to help your loved one, help in inverted commas, what time you've lost, what relationships of your own may have changed or you've lost. If work has been affected, finances have been affected, and it's just about knowing the difference of where do we draw the line. For the enabler, you end up taking on this life of the fixer, and you're living for someone else. You're living a life of unmanageability, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and physical unmanageability. Then for the enabled, there's a loss of hope, a loss of opportunity for growth, loss of ambition, no sense of who they are or what they could be, as their identity becomes this helpless victim. Going back to some of the points on the screen, becomes a barrier to recovery. When you enable, the growth, that development comes to a halt. It prevents the enabled addict from facing some of their consequences. because the enabler is the fixer, getting rid of those negative consequences, saving the person from themselves, you would think. And the enabler loses respect for themselves. As I had mentioned, the unmanageability of life, not knowing if you're coming or going, really, and giving way for the enabled addict to lose respect for family and friends. How many times has your loved one come to you and said something or did something, and you're like, this person is trying me. This person is taking me for a ride. I am a joke. What have I done? How did this happen? You know, it's difficult, and I'm not here to tell you that you're going to sleep and wake up and everything is going to be the way you would like it to be. It's not. It's unfortunately not how this is. Addiction is destruction. It's chaos. It pulls you in when you don't even see it coming, because it starts off small, little bit by little bit. A sense of you gets taken away, chipped away, and enabling creates permissive attitude towards substance abuse, where it's fine, it's not a problem. Of course I can use this. Of course I can go there. Of course I can do this. Um, and and because everything is okay, because the addict's behavior is acceptable, because consequences will resolve themselves, why would the addict need to go seek treatment? They wouldn't. There's no need. Everything is fixed already. And this for me, when I look at it, it takes me to step one. I'm going to just use Alcohol Anonymous as step one of, we admitted we were powerless over over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. We cannot control our addicted loved ones. We cannot control our bosses. We cannot control our parents, our siblings. With the chaos and destruction that comes with addiction, trying to control how the addict is addicted makes you internally unmanageable. I'm hoping that some of that makes sense. Okay, let's go into the next slide there, Cheryl. So now, how do we know that there's enabling behaviors? What are the signs? What are the clues for us? We've got quite a few here in front of us. Avoiding the problem and or confrontation. In this case, if there's been unacceptable behaviors exhibited or lies, manipulation, and instead of confronting that straight on, hide behind it. Close the windows. No one can see, no one must know. I can fix this on my own. An inability to express your emotions. When you're happy, sad, mad, glad, any of the emotions that are there for us, when there's become a block because you're just in, just trying to fix the problem, just trying to get things going, not being able to express when you're frustrated, becoming overwhelmed, denying that there's a problem. No, someone, you know what? The other person is worse. This whole situation can be worse, so it's not that bad. Denying the problem, that there's a problem, is such a trap. And in any way that you do it, you are going in for a trap there. Feeling resentful. Now, when we're feeling resentful, that's going in there with that inability to express emotions, that avoiding the problem, because now this person is just carrying on, nothing is changing for them, everything is fine for them, and now I have lost relationships, I've lost friends, I've lost finances, I've lost my home, I've lost this, I've lost that, I don't have this, I don't have that. There's that resentfulness going in there because you're trying to fix what's going on for your addicted loved one. Ignoring or tolerating the addiction and or problematic behavior. You know what so-and-so said they were tired. I'm sure they're just tired. It's not acceptable for someone to speak poorly to another person. We all can control our actions. We may not control our emotions. If something makes me happy, it makes me happy. But what do I do about that happiness? If something makes me sad, makes me sad. But what do I do about that sadness? If you tolerate someone else controlling how you function and that unmanageability, you're just enabling. You're allowing that behavior to continue. You're allowing the problem to persist. Can we go on to the next slide?
Yes. It just stands out for me. A couple of weeks ago, we did the drama triangle, the victim,
yes.
and persecutor. And as you were speaking, what came to mind, obviously the enabling behaviors is what we as the families and codependents do, but we don't see the far-reaching impact that it has on other family members. Because a lot of people can see when our behavior is enabling and they don't agree with it. But we become so stubborn and so headfast that I know I'm helping him or her. Everybody else ganging up against them, but they need me. They need me in their corner. They need me to fight for them and to stand up for them. And I took a call earlier from somebody I've known since he was the child addict was 17, and he's now, I think, 36. And his mom is saying the same thing she said to me 20 odd years ago when he was 16. Nobody understands him. I can't let my child live on the streets. I've got to help him. He's got nobody else in his corner. And I think having seen these 2 decades of the chaos in their family, a father said to us a couple of months ago, I refuse to disable my daughter. And we were correcting him, saying, no, it's enable. And he said, when I enable my daughter, I am disabling her. And I'm treating her as a disabled human being. And so many lights went on for me, because that's the opposite of what we're trying to do. We think enabling is going to help, but we're actually disabling them to cripple where they can't help themselves. And as you're reading this, it's just becoming so prevalent that enabling is harmful. If we get proud of what we do, we're doing it wrong. When you're saying no to them and setting limits and boundaries and following through with consequences, we're not going to jump for joy. It's painful. It's uncomfortable. Because the nice, soft help where we feel warm and fuzzy, that's the disabling, enabling behavior.
So true. So true. And when you said, disabling their loved one there, it really goes back to now, why would the addicted loved one need to grow? Why would they need to learn to do anything for themselves? Why would they need to do anything new when it's all being done for me?
Correct. Why stop? Why stop using when all my needs are met and excuses are made on my behalf and my manipulation bullshit is being believed? Why should I stop? And I think we also, I mean, I can only speak for myself as a female. I think as females, moms, sisters, wives, partners, we keep thinking this is going to be the last time. I'm not, I'm going to give in. I'm going to pay this bail because this time he's going to learn. This time she's going to grow. This time something's, and it doesn't. And again, I think until we see enabling as a crime, we got to keep on doing it.
Yeah.
So for anybody on the platform, if you're still showing signs of enabling them, making things comfortable, look yourself in the mirror and say, I'm committing a crime. I'm hurting my loved one beyond approach or reproach.
Yeah. So true. So true. I think the next slide has just got more, yeah. So making excuses, as Cheryl did bring up, or lying, covering up for your addicted loved one, so that no one has to face their consequences. Why should I be worried about consequences if my loved ones are just gonna lie for me?
Mm.
There's I don't need to stop. Justifying your loved one's addiction. They do need weed because it does help them sleep,
Mm.
or they have anxiety, they're being bullied. The world isn't nice. It's fine if they have a drink or two every now and then, but it's that first drink that's
Mhm.
that's the start of this accumulating problem.
Mhm.
No, but they don't do any hard drugs. They only do alcohol, so it's fine. Or it's only weed, it's fine. Those justifications are enabling. It's not okay. Addiction is not okay. Minimizing the extent of your loved one's addiction. Sure, that one could go on for hours about minimizing,
Yeah.
just minimizing alone, because that's when you are no longer authentic about what is happening in our lives. The integrity is lost in that minimizing,
Mm.
because if you make it less than, you are giving it the go ahead. You are saying it's a-okay. It is acceptable. If you take 10 down to 5 when it's in actuality 15, you are saying that one that starts off everything is a-okay. Minimizing is so dangerous. Providing financial assistance that maintains their addiction and or problematic behaviors. And I think this goes into what Cheryl was saying in terms of paying that final bail. It's fine. I'm just going to pay off this last bail and then it'll be the last time. If we are solving those financial consequences, then you're saying that no, it is fine. It is fine for them to carry on with their addiction. It is the problematic behavior is okay. The manipulation is fine. The blaming, the avoidance, the rationalizing, sacrificing or neglecting your own needs to care for them consistently. Self-compassion and self-care is so important. It is so important to take time out of your day for yourself. When we stop taking care of ourselves, we can no longer care for anyone around us, because there will be stress, there will be burnout, there will be compassionate fatigue, and all of those things just play on the soul, the very being that is you. If you are someone that enjoys running and you are not able to go for 5K run or a 2K run, or just go outside just to enjoy that peace and serenity for yourself, you are neglecting yourself. If you need to take a calming shower instead of a quick in and out shower because you've got somewhere else to go, you are neglecting yourself.
Mm.
If even meal prep can be such a therapeutic process, especially if you want to try out. I mean, I can't attest to those that don't enjoy cooking. But I mean, if you enjoy taking out time to find the right ingredients, prepare a nice enjoyable meal so you can sit down at the table and consume that in a way that you feel you need to, you are neglecting yourself because you're not taking that time that you need for you. because you are on the go. There's a problem out there that needs to be fixed. There's a payment that needs to be made for that person. Mind you, if you look at your own life, you have your own financial responsibilities. There's rent to pay. There's cars that need to be maintained. You need to go to the dentist. And I'm just speaking for yourself as the individual. And now if you are, you know what, I'm going to delay this one so that I can pay off this consequence quickly, that is neglecting yourself too. Okay, if we go to the next one. Okay. Taking over responsibilities for your addicted loved ones. This is a harsh one because it extends to childcare. If you are in the position where you need to take on the childcare responsibilities, that is enabling. I'm not saying that you should not care for, your grandchildren, your friends, your sisters, your nieces, your nephews, and all of that. But this is one that you need to look out for, because as soon as that becomes a prevalent thing in your life, that is enabling behavior. Because it's fine if you want to go to the crack house because the child is taken care of. It's fine if you cannot drive because you are too drunk, because I am taking the child to school. Something needs to change when that becomes your reality. Rescuing your addicted loved one from problems that they have created. And I think this goes back into consequences. For you to take on those consequences as your own is that very last thing. You are rescuing them. You are putting yourself in a problematic situation because you are trying to help another person, and you are allowing that behavior to continue. Yes, sorry, Cheryl.
It stands out for us quite often when we have certain families where we propose long-term treatment, either with us or in another facility, and we know it's expensive. But parents have turned us down because they've got to go and pay the dealers, and they've got to go and pay for the loans that they've taken out and the financial consequences that they've created. And as much as we say to him, well, if you pay the dealer, you're just giving him more credit for the next round. Don't pay the dealers. And so what if they list themselves as bankrupt or sequestrated or under debt review because they created this mess? And how many families, and sorry, ladies, I think it's more of us than the gents, we find and manufacture those excuses because we still believe we're helping them. Even when they're in rehab, they've admitted to being a problem, you're fighting for their life. It's still hard to say, no, I'm not bailing out. I'm not taking care of your responsibilities. Stay clean and you'll figure it out down the line. And we maintain that addicts who take financial responsibility somewhere and as often as possible have such a stronger chance of staying clean because they are fighting for recovery. If they have to pay something back, it means more to them.
Yeah, it reminds me of my mum, the value of hard work. Because if I work for that money, whether it's my December job when I was 16 or whatever it was, I'm going to respect that money more because I earned it.
Correct.
And it's the same in this instance. Okay, if we go on to the next slide. Okay, so I've bombarded you with all this negativity and how everything is wrong and bad and terrible, but how do we help an addict without enabling them? Okay, so this is, if you can think back to sympathy, empathy, and apathy, this is now when we make the shift from sympathy to empathy. When a loved one has a substance use disorder, it's natural for families to want to fix the problem. We've acknowledged that. In the beginning, we already said you want to help, understand, and that the intentions are typically good. However, families do not know that there's a difference between enabling and helping, that may end up contributing to the addiction. I think we've also covered that quite extensively, and that loved ones often enable addicts because they don't know the best way to help. And that's why we're here at this slide now, is how do we help them? The key here are boundaries and consequences. We need to start off as enablers. I'm just going to refer to all of us here in the group because it'll be simpler. As enablers, we need to be honest, we need to be open-minded, and we need to be willing. And this takes us back to step one, where we admit that we're powerless over our loved ones and the addiction. We are powerless over that. And powerlessness is an absolute. It's important to note that because you cannot control them. And that our lives have become unmanageable. Now, this goes back to that emotional unmanageability, that mental unmanageability, the physical unmanageability, and the spiritual unmanageability. And the step one is used by us in Changes, as well as the 12-step program. And that's where we start. We start with having to be honest, admitting within ourselves that we need help. We cannot do this alone. That the addiction is the boss in this scenario, and even ourselves have fallen victim to its needs, because in us trying to fix our loved one, our addicted loved one's problem, we too are now becoming an addict within ourselves. And if we're able to admit to ourselves from the depths of our depth that we are outmatched, then we will be truly willing and able to help our loved ones. We need to confront them about the consequences of their substance abuse and be honest and need to stand our grounds. And I'm going to go back now to boundaries, because I think that was the first thing I mentioned. How do we set a boundary? Now, when it comes to boundaries, it can be so difficult because it's the consequences and the follow through that is the most important. If you do this, this is what will happen. And then you need to follow through with that. And the consequence that you put forth for your loved one needs to be something that you are willing to carry through. If it's a matter of kicking your loved one out the house, if it's a matter of not helping them financially, you need to stick to that consequence. Otherwise, everything you're saying is going to fall on deaf ears, and you are essentially enabling, because then you're saying it's okay. Boundaries are difficult, but they are so important. Confronting them about those consequences now no longer means we're having hush-hush conversations or avoiding that there's a problem here. We're having open, honest communication. It is not okay. This needs to stop. This is what is going to happen. And that's different to controlling their recovery. Okay, the recovery side needs to come from them. But if you are able to stand your ground to actually help them and not enable them, then that will put the ball in their side of the court, where then they are able to look at what their goals are. What are those aspirations? What growth is needed from them? What changes are needed from them? What needs to be different this time? Cheryl, I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to add.
Well, no, I don't think so. I think you've covered so much, Lily. It's always a difficult topic.
Yes.
I also sometimes feel like parents and families and loved ones think we're sort of digging at them when we say stop the enabling. And for us, I think the seasoned ones, it just makes sense. It's like a good scientific equation. Stop helping inappropriately and save a life.
Yeah.
Whereas we know that the best intentions that are coming from the families is to save the life, but they're causing so much harm. So
Yes.
I'd love to hear from families who would like to ask some questions, to share some experiences, to challenge Lolly or myself, because it's always good to have interactive feedback. Remember, addiction is a process, and so too is recovery. So one of the things that we often talk about is please don't make idle threats or promises, because if you can't stick to it, don't say it. And that's what Lolly's saying. So I think if you are ready to separate and get a divorce, it's okay to put it on the table. But to use it as a threat, almost like a manipulation to keep them in check, this disease, nothing keeps them in check. And that's why we have to do what we're speaking about tonight, which is stop enabling, so that their consequences mount up and that helps them want to stay clean and sober. So I find that Tough Love is one of the most powerful programs around to help us each week set goals, bottom lines, and long-term stands on how to achieve these very, very tough decisions. I feel for Marina, I feel for Wilhelmina, I feel for all of you sitting here, because I also come from a family of addiction. And I felt the same, when we paid and paid and paid, and my loved one never stayed clean. He never got cleaning treatment. So we would pay, and 2 days later, he'd be using, and we couldn't understand what was going on. And I joined Tough Love, and I'm very proud to say I stayed for 18 years. And what it taught me was that I don't have to do anything extreme. The changes that I make are small and significant. And saying no and disengaging, if they're nasty to you on the telephone, I sometimes, we address this with our patients. We overhear them on the telephones with you guys, and we're shocked. My first question is, did the parent or the loved one, the girlfriend, husband, wife put the phone down? And they say no. I thought, well, why not? If somebody spoke to me that way, I'll say, thank you very much. I'll speak to you tomorrow. Goodbye. Put the phone down. So those are the small action steps that I think a lot that needs to change. It's not the strong, powerful rules or boundaries. And there's a difference between the two. A boundary is, this is where I stop. And this is where I take care of me. And as an adult, how are you going to take care of yourself? A rule is there will be no drinking or drugging in my house. And if there's drinking or drugging in my house, these are the consequences I'm going to mete out. So it's a long process. I'm always glad when I see families regularly coming back, even after the loved one has finished treatment, because each meeting, something stays behind. And if you're not getting enough from us, please join Tough Love, Al-Anon, Nar-Anon, Co-Anon, CODA. Do as much as you can, because this is a horrible, rocky road that we're all on. Okay, there's more questions, Lolly.
Yep, everyone's just saying thank you. It was helpful asking about Tough Love.
I think the best thing to do is look for toughlove.org on the internet and read their website.
Yeah.
You can always.
Sam has uploaded the link onto the chat.
Great.
So if you want that link for Tough Love, you're more than welcome. Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Yeah, I think it's, the 5 things that I always give families that I work with is, the first one is always present a united front. Never, ever make an idle threat or promise. So what you say, you follow through with. The next one is less is more. say less, speak less, do less, buy less, offer less. Even when it comes to tuck, if you're struggling,
Yes.
please don't put tuck in the tuck shop. It's really fine. They don't need it. They get 3 good, solid meals a day, plus 2 snacks with fruit and sandwiches. Tuck is a privilege, not a right. If they're demanding tuck, as families who's sponsoring, paying or paying the medical aid for treatment, please say no. Don't have to enable.
Mm.
The next point is very often the opposite of what we think. That's the truth. Now, that takes quite a long time to get your head around, but a lot of times what your loved ones are saying, even in treatment, the opposite is the truth. And then the last one is, please find a support group, educate yourselves. You're blessed with the internet. There's so much information about addiction and recovery. And don't stop. Use the free services. Even when your loved one has finished treatment, we welcome you on this platform. We're never going to charge you for this platform because we recognize that families need the help too. And sometimes it's not easy to leave kids and animals and jobs to run off to tough love meetings. Please get support and stay in it. You're not alone.